injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
I feel like 2024 is going to be magical.
Hello and welcome to this edition of FOF Live presented by Berger and Hicks. As always, you can check out Berger and Hicks on their Instagram, Twitter, and their website. And you can also call them. We will have the phone number and everything you'll need down below. As always, I am joined here today with Kevin Barrad, Eli Sussman. We'll have Evan Lang of Purple Row from the Colorado Rockies joining us in just a few short minutes. But fellas, what a week it was for the Marlins, getting swept, and not getting swept by it was the Braves or the Dodgers. No, getting swept by the Washington Nationals in the division. 4 games, not 3 but 4. Kevin, what is your takeaway from this season from hell, or at least?
I mean, it couldn't have gotten much worse than this, honestly. I think the game that you have to really point at was that Sunday game where they were up 7-0 and they ended up losing. That's happened. They've blown a lot of leads this year and we've seen it, but I don't think they've ever blown a lead this bad. And man, oh man, was it bad. The offense just shut off after that bottom of the first. They got that other run in the second. They kind of made it a little bit interesting and, yeah, just a really bad series overall. The offense really never got it going. Then in that final game, we'll talk about it, I guess, the Jesus Sanchez incident, and that ended up having Tim Anderson get injured. And I think it was 2 batters later that Trevor Rogers gave up that 2-run homer to CJ Abrams. So, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Edward didn't look very good, at least towards the end of his outing. Ryan Weathers just didn't look like himself. It was overall a very tough series for the Marlins. And on top of that, I mean, Jesus Luzardo's now down. Avi went on the injured list. So you're continuously losing more players. And, on top of that, you're losing more games. And, you're starting to see a tipping point with Skip. And, in these press conferences, you're hearing Trevor Rogers say, I'm pissed. I don't think we've ever heard that from a player before, at least in the Marlins. Skip definitely not happy about it. You're seeing him make that statement move, I would say, honestly, by benching Jesus Sanchez there. So it could have gone worse than this. And on top of that, it's a team that they've dominated for the last 2 years and literally dominated. I think they've lost a combined 3 games in the last 2 years against this team. It was the first time they'd gotten swept in a 4-game set since 2014. So it goes to show, how good the Marlins have been against the Nationals. Even in that 2019 season where the Nats won it all. I mean, they were not off to a good start, and Marlins weren't either, but they were obviously, I think, the better team at that time.
Yeah, like you said, just from start to finish, total crap from the news about Luzardo's injury, and so far, fingers crossed, it's not that serious, but that's why he didn't start the series opener, and you had to scramble to figure that out all the way to the very end, where the final 3 innings of this series finale. It's Dylan Floro and Matt Barnes' revenge game. They combined for 3 perfect innings to finish off a series sweep that, as you said, they had not have been swept by the Nats in a 4-game series in 10 years. And they play those type of series against them every single year. This is the first time in all that time that they've gotten beaten up like that. I mean, the Nats came in as, I think, the slightly better team, but let me see if I can find all the predictions that we put out about this. Like, not a single person was willing to say, as bad as things were going, nobody said, wow, the Nats are going to sweep this 4 games. There was a mix. We've slowly seen people come around to the idea that this Marlins team is awful, but not to the extent that you're going to lose those 4 in a row on the heels of also getting swept the previous series and overall having a totally winless week in there. There's this other crazy stat that I hadn't noticed at the time that was just brought to my attention about Jacob Young, who's like the seventh most notable Nats position player. This is like, even as it was going on, I feel like this went unnoticed that he had a combination of runs and stolen bases in a series that nobody had done since the pre-StatCast era, since 1911, 113 years ago. And yeah, that just underscored everything was going wrong. Like even Nick Fortes, even when he made like he was behind the plate, I think in 3 of these games, even when he made good throws, they were running at will and they weren't able to get guys out. Like from the defense continued to be bad. And as you went through on the pitching side, like that was something that had been gradually turning the corner, I thought, like in recent couple series with their starting pitching. And then this one, a huge step back. Ryan Weathers was awful from the beginning. Guys like Trevor and Edward, I thought had flashes the first time through the order where they looked really sharp. And then they really tailed off deeper into their outings as well. And then even the bullpen had a couple really ugly moments in this series. Anthony Bender early in this series, I forget which game it was because
It was the Sunday one.
yeah, it was on Sunday where they still had the lead when he came in, and he allows inherited runners to score and 3 of his own. His ERA is at 9. Like that's kind of gone under the radar about how bad he's been. And then Andrew Nardi last night, like same situation, like inherited runners. The game is still kind of close. They all score. And yeah, that Andrew Nardi stat, I shared it on Twitter last night, but it is just absolutely shocking. Like last year, what made him special is that he was so nails when in those high pressure situations, cleaning up other people's messes. And now this year, he leads the majors in inherited runners who've scored against him. He's gone from that being his specialty, that being just totally unreliable in that situation. Where yeah, so we're at a point where we have guys that could probably use a breather in AAA, whether it's Nardi, whether it's Bender on that side. It's not like that's going to fix everything. You just want to get those guys straightened out for the future to get back on track at some point. It's no longer about like micro analyzing, trying to win as many games as humanly possible, but it's also about recognizing that there are several players across the board here that are wildly underperforming, and it's hard to put your finger on exactly why that is because, yeah, this has been pretty stunning. That's how you get here, where this team has won 20% of its games a full month into the season.
I mean, I think that, you could also make the case where, you really don't have many players in the minor leagues. You have Rodri Munoz, who Isaac said reported that he's going to get called up most likely, I believe, start tomorrow, I want to say.
Yeah.
And I mean, Brazaban's not ready. Soriano's been, I haven't checked, but I'm pretty sure he's been struggling in AAA. I mean, you don't have much, man. They don't have much, and they don't have many guys on the 40-man roster either that are relievers. I mean, you called up the one guy that has been your best reliever, Anthony Maldonado, who, seems like he's going to be on this team for, quite a bit of time. Hopefully at the major league level. He was used in a relief situation right before Nardi actually yesterday. So, yeah, definitely. Or he was the first reliever. Fauché followed him. But, yeah, I mean, it's definitely been tough, especially with the bullpen. It just kind of goes back to, kind of what Peter Bendick said in that Pensacola. It's like something new every day that you think is maybe going to stop, but it keeps going. And in this case, you think the bullpen's going to tighten it up. You're thinking Andrew Nardi, he's going to have 1 or 2 of these moments, but it just continues to happen. And it's not going to get much better than that.
Yeah, going from the pitchers, let's go ahead and maybe switch up to the batters. What did you see the hitting wise from the Marlins? I know you mentioned they had a really strong start to that game where they had the comeback against the Nats, came back against them. But overall, how would you maybe review maybe the Marlins position players? I know Jazz had a pretty good series, and you can go to Jesus Sanchez maybe on the other end of that spectrum there, where he maybe did not have the best of series and really ending it up getting benched by Skip.
Let's talk about Vidal Brujan. He's on a 4-game hitting streak, had 2 hits in each of the first 3 games, and in this last one, he had to come in for Jesus Sanchez. So obviously, still struggling for the most part, but defensively, especially at third base. But still, I mean, it's good to see that someone's really finding a groove, and for a guy who really has been a non-factor for the Rays, every time he's been coming up to the major leagues. He's finally gotten it going. I mean, really good series against the Nats, who obviously swept the Marlins and have shown that that team is going to be pretty damn good for years to come. And they're I believe now just a game under 500. So definitely good to see Bruin getting it going. We saw Jazz with the grand slam on Sunday, then the home run yesterday. So good to see him get it going a little bit. They need him more than anyone. And yeah, just again, not good stuff from the offense still. The top of the order really struggled on Friday. Then yesterday, the bottom of the order, I believe, went 0 for 18 or something like that. It was really bad. So yeah, I mean, overall, just tough. It's just a lot of inconsistencies. It's not a clear. You're not finding that consistency that you had last year from the offense, where you knew if you were down a run or two, or you're down 3 or 4 runs, that you're telling yourself maybe you have a chance. It's not like that. It doesn't feel like that whatsoever anymore. It feels like you're down 2 runs. It's kind of it.
Yeah.
On the positive side, you got to go to Jazz hitting homers in back-to-back games, the grand slam to the opposite field, then the 2-run shot to dead center. Like, that's the special power that he has. And there are times where he gets too pull happy when he actually has that rare talent to go deep to any field when he gets the right situation to do so. So that gets his numbers kind of up to his career numbers. He's been one of many guys that have been underperforming to this point. And now you look up, we're still so early in the year that when you have a couple great games like that, it pretty dramatically changes your overall statistical outlook. Now overall, like, you look at his complete production and it's one of the best on the team, even though the bar is so low. On the negative side, you have to go to Josh Bell, who technically was in the middle of that huge rally on Sunday, because he's the one, he hit that ground ball to shortstop, like a perfectly routine double play situation, except CJ Abrams botches it. He gets nobody out. It loads the bases for Jazz. The Marlins score 6 runs in that inning. And that was like the highlight for him in the series, is when he reached on an error, and that error opened the floodgates. He's one of many guys that I pointed to who their ground ball rate is just off the charts this year. There is mechanically, he is so out of whack, and he pretty much has been since the start of the year. Even as somebody that's been a high ground ball guy in the past, it is way, way, way out of whack with him. And it's why last year, remember, he got off to that slow start in Cleveland. When the Marlins took him on, he was considered a bad contract. But you compare it and this year to last year, and there's still a pretty big gap. This is not even like last year. This is more severe with him. He is 2 for his last 27. His OPS is 539. Yeah. So Josh Bell is somebody that they really had no choice once he opted into his 2024 option. Like, they had to rely on him a lot. He's been playing every single day. He continues to bat in the middle of the lineup based on his track record and because of the lack of alternatives. But that is a guy that, for this team in this situation, they really want to, if nothing else, get him to a spot where he has some sort of appeal at the trade deadline for relevant teams. He is a pending free agent now. And he is, at this point, unless he goes on the same kind of heater he did late last year, then his overall numbers are really going to depress his market. And he doesn't seem really that close to turning the corner, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. If you keep getting this exact production from someone like a Josh Bell, maybe you're seeing a situation where you're going to have to keep him, past the deadline. I mean, who would be interested in that? Some could say, let's look at what happened last year. He goes to a new situation, he gets it going. But again, I mean, he's been struggling, and it's kind of been what you were kind of referring to, Eli. A lot of ground balls from him, but I think now you're just seeing a lot of balls kind of stay up in the air, especially yesterday. I would love to call up Troy. Trust me. I think all of us here would love Mr. Troy to come up, but you just got to think about, kind of yesterday specifically. It really felt like they were hitting the ball a lot to the air. It just stayed up there, and that kind of ended up biting them back.
Just for a brief Troy update, he is playing a little bit in the outfield recently. He is adding more flexibility, and he has been heating up. He has more hits than anybody else in this minor league system so far this season, despite a slow start. He's starting to look like himself again, while also adding a little versatility. So that gives him an extra avenue to sneak on the roster, potentially. But it is not imminent. I think it is still a while away. He would need other guys to go down for him to come up, unfortunately.
Yeah, and maybe pitching wise on this series, it was a lot of bad, you could say, on the starting pitching wise. I don't know if I'm going to count Anthony Maldonado, not a full time starter, but really great from him there. But really, I would say Trevor Rogers, Weathers, and Edward Cabrera maybe not have had the best of starts. Maybe predominantly Cabrera and Weathers. Kevin, what did you see between Cabrera and Ryan Weathers? Both guys who look to be coming in have had really pretty good stuff. Couple have been down, and then now it seems like this series, it just seemed like they reverted back to what we saw last year between those two guys.
Yeah, I wasn't able to watch the Cabrera start, but the Weathers, it's interesting because you look back at that start against San Francisco where he struck out 10. His primary pitch was the sweeper, just kind of went away from it those last two starts. Not sure how much of that has really made an impact for him. I don't know why he may have gone away from it. Definitely something worth asking next time around. But yeah, I mean, definitely interesting choice there for him. Again, it's a lot of control issues too for him. You look at this last start, 3 walks. He, I believe, hit 3 guys in that start as well. So he's been struggling, and you kind of need him to bounce back.
Yeah. And now let's bring in Evan Lang from Purple Row of the Colorado Rockies. Evan, it is great to have you on to talk about Little Rocky series with us. First thing, talk to us a little bit about the Rockies so far this season. They're, you could say, the same boat as the Marlins right now in terms of standings. Not where maybe they want to be, but for the Rockies, again, more wins, and they are bringing up one of their better prospects for the series as well.
Oh, more wins, but only by 1. I mean, there's no really beating around the bush. The Rockies are bad this year. I think worse than a lot of people, including myself, expected. With, we thought, all right, we ripped off the Band-Aid last year, 100+ losses. Okay, it's a rebuilding year. We can at least have a little fun. And then, oh boy, it's not been pretty. Like the Marlins, the Rockies are one of the only teams to have not won a series or not even won consecutive games so far this season. They're pretty bad, and now we're at the battle of the bottom feeders for this series coming up. And I do think it's going to be a fun series. I always like when the Rockies play the Marlins. We've had some real fun games in the history of that matchup. And it's going to be even more fun for Rockies fans with Jordan Beck coming up.
Talk to us a little bit about Jordan Beck a little bit. He's one of the top prospects, top 100 for MLB Pipeline. Definitely a guy who I guess you Rockies fans are very excited to see.
Yeah, Jordan Beck over at Purple Row, we ranked him as our by voting and over that we ranked him as our number 6 overall prospect in the organization. The Rockies and MLB Pipeline have him ranked at number 4, and I believe MLB Pipeline has him at 73 overall in the top 100. He was the Rockies' first round pick in 2022 out of the University of Tennessee. Much beloved at Tennessee for his attitude. He is having met him and talked to him. He is an incredibly nice guy. Was super polite, super friendly. But when he's on the field, the switch flips, and he can be a little bit of an antagonist. He's going to flip your bat. He's going to flip you off, and he's going to do a lot of really exciting things. I'm really excited for one Mr. Mike Honcho, which is his nickname since he was at the University of Tennessee, to be up here with the team. He has been on fire with AAA Albuquerque to start the season. In 25 games, he's got an OPS of 999 with 5 home runs, 2 doubles, 2 triples, 10 doubles. He's stealing bases. He does a little bit of everything. He's rangy. He's got power. He can hit for contact. He's fast. He is one of the most exciting prospects in the Rockies system right now. And, he's never really struggled that much in the farm system. I would say the biggest struggle he had was when he was promoted to AA Hartford late last season, and he hit 240, but then he's just come out the gate swinging and had a really excellent spring training too, where he won basically the spring training MVP award.
Yeah, and he's going to be coming. For Nolan Jones, who was just placed on the IL. Just losing a type of guy like that, maybe what does Jordan, or maybe how do the Rockies have to, I don't want to say replace a guy like Nolan Jones, who was one of the better, if not maybe the best Rockies player last year.
Yeah, Nojo was definitely our MVP last season, but this year, after a good spring training, he's just been off to a really difficult start. And we found out pretty much that it's because this back injury that he's dealing with that has put him on the 10-day IL has probably been bothering him since about the start of the season. The Rockies knew about it, weren't originally very worried about it, and figured it would resolve. It just hasn't. They've had to pull him from multiple games at this point. He's had to miss time, and now finally he's on the IL. And it is tough because Nolan is really one of the best Rockies players if you're judging from last year's performance, but he just wasn't really able to contribute so far this season. And we're hoping that, honestly, just the rest will get him, get his back feeling better and get him back in the lineup because, he is important. But you can definitely see Jordan Beck being not a replacement, but a good, exciting, young, high prospect, sort of darling of the organization to come up and get immediate playing time, which the fact that he's in the lineup right away is actually genuinely surprising based on how this organization has tended to handle its prospect call-ups.
Yeah, that is something that I had noticed from afar, that some like frustration about how guys in recent years, when they perform and they get up to the Rockies, they don't stay up or they don't play consistently that often. But overall, are you hopeful? Are you happy with the state of their farm system? The Marlins are kind of they've pretty much bottomed out, where one impetus behind why they just shook up their front office is because it was looking pretty bleak down there. And even for the moment, they are consensus one of the worst farm systems in baseball. And that's kind of our personal view of it as well. But like with the Rockies, even though at the major league level, these teams are on level footing, how overall, what's your enthusiasm or lack thereof for future?
I'm actually very enthusiastic about the Rockies farm system. As you guys know, as not being as big a market team, the national media tends to kind of ignore you or not really know as much of what's going on in the organization. And I think that's been a big part of it for the Rockies farm system, where national baseball media tends to really downplay our system. Oh, they say it's one of the middle of the pack at best. It's worst in the league. We get a lot, bottom 5, bottom 10. But honestly, I think the Rockies farm system is tremendously underrated with a lot of really interesting prospects. I mean, we've got 4 top MLB top 100 prospects this year, in addition to Jordan Beck, who's our number 4 per MLB pipeline. You've got, Chase Dollander, also out of the University of Tennessee, who has been really awesome to watch pitch down in High A Spokane. You've got Zach Veen, who the hype around him kind of tapered off last year because of his wrist and hand injury that had really diminished his power and then caused him to miss the rest of that season. But he ended up starting this year in Hartford, and he's doing very well. A lot of interesting pitching prospects, a lot of interesting position prospects. And I think, or at least I'm hoping, that people will start to notice that this year, as it's sort of evened out. What used to be the case is that the Rockies farm system was very bottom heavy. A lot of the top prospects down in low A or high A, not a ton of that prospect depth up in double A or triple A. And it's sort of switched around at this point. You've still got plenty of prospect depth in Spokane, but a lot of the big name guys are now in double A, Hartford, or triple A, Albuquerque. And that makes it, I think, way more exciting. I love our low A Fresno Grizzlies, but they are definitely less deep in terms of high end prospect talent this year compared to, say, last year or the year before, where they had Cole Carrick, Yanquiel Fernandez, Gabriel Hughes, a bunch of other guys.
Yeah. And you also have a Miami guy in the prospect, Carson Palmquist from the University of Miami. Had to get him in. They've also been doing pretty great also for their double A team.
You mean my favorite pitching prospect in the entire farm system right now, Carson Palmquist? Well, he's great to watch. He works really efficiently. He's got a great pitch arsenal. He's super confident on the mound. And he went, 16 innings, his first 3 starts without allowing a run and just striking out a ton of guys. I think Carson Palmquist is in the majors at some point this year. Ooh. Probably towards the end of the season, but I really do see him being the next pitcher up.
Looking at the major league team, you guys, what would you say has gone wrong for the Rockies in 2024? You guys have a Brenton Doyle who's gotten off to a great start. Same thing goes with Ryan McMahon, and you have 2 other guys up there in the over 100 OPS plus. Just what's gone wrong for the Rockies? I know you guys just had to go over to Mexico, play a tough series against the Astros, and that in that ballpark, kind of better for you guys in terms of just how with cores, but just how tough has what do you think has gone wrong for the Rockies in 2024?
Offensively, it's a ton of strikeouts. The Rockies have an incredibly high strikeout rate. They've struck out some of the most times in the majors right now. They would have to go 38. Patrick Lyons posted this was chatting with me about this earlier, where they have to go 38 at bats without striking out in order to avoid having the highest ever strikeout percentage in franchise history to start the season. There's really only a couple of players who are below league average of strikeouts, and some of them are unsurprising, and some of them are very surprising, and some of them kind of even out. So like Brenton Doyle has a pretty high strikeout percentage, almost 30%, but he's contributing enough at the plate that it's not really as big a deal. But then you turn it around and you have, guys like Michael Tolia, who had struck out 20-something times before he was optioned down to AAA Albuquerque and only had 5 hits, 4 of which were home runs, basically making him a one true outcome kind of guy. And then you have your normal guys below league average. You have Elias Diaz, our catcher, Charlie Blackmon, and Eleris Montero. But none of them, Diaz kind of, but Charlie Blackmon's in a little bit of a slump right now after a really hot start to the season. And then Montero is taking some great at-bats, great plate approach, but he just isn't producing yet.
Yeah. And the one thing I've always wanted to ask maybe someone who's affiliated or covers the Rockies, and when it comes to pitching, where it's pitching prospects, how do you view guys in those systems, and when you bring them up to Coors Field, do you view them differently because they are coming up in that Rocky system and will have to play their games in Coors Field in that altitude, or do you view them differently at all than any other pitchers or prospects in the majors?
For me personally, not really. I do think they definitely have a tougher time, especially considering where their AAA affiliate is. Albuquerque down in the PCL is just an absolute meat grinder for pitchers, to the point where I sometimes wonder if pitching prospects should skip AAA altogether sometimes, because it's a meat grinder. You're going to get destroyed, and it's tough to evaluate because it's such a tough place to pitch. But at the same time, so's Coors Field. But honestly, what more the issue is when you get outside of Coors Field, and it's the same thing for our hitters, is that you're playing 81 games in one spot and the ball moves a certain way at altitude, and then you leave Colorado and the ball moves completely different. And that I think that makes it harder, is basically being able to pitch in 2 completely environments. It's tough, but I also don't buy the Coors Field effect for pitching as much, because plenty of pitchers come in and can absolutely dominate at Coors Field. We've already had a couple outings this year where, the starting pitcher just absolutely crushed us. You had Luis Castillo from the Mariners a couple of weeks ago. Dylan Cease, both of them had just excellent outings at Coors.
Yeah. And let's bring in Isaac Zoo, who is on scene at Lone Depot Park covering for us for this Rockies and Marlins series for this game.
Let's keep him waiting until after the break. We'll stay quiet, and then we'll do
a cameo.
Yeah, he already has the answer to this one. But every stream, Evan, we take a player who is on both of these teams during their career, a former Marlins and Rockies player in this case, and we'll give you just some biographical information for you and for our listeners and see if they can identify who this guy is. Hold on right here. I would say this one is slightly harder than average compared to my usual standards on this. Yeah, there's a better look at it. It's a lefty pitcher, was in the majors from 2009 to 2019. As you can see, a reliever, never started in the big leagues, but he stuck around a long time. Add the pen. Interesting overall numbers. Nothing that really jumps out too much. But we'll go to break. When we come back,
I'm pretty sure I immediately know.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll see. On the other side of this break, we'll reveal. We'll do the press box report. We'll get deeper into this series and a whole lot more. So Stick with us here on FOF Live.
We have been representing people injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
All right. Give us, we got somebody in the chat who got it. What is your guess on this one, Evan?
It's Mike Dunn,
It is indeed.
There we go.
part of the
Marlins
vaunted Colorado Rockies super pen experiment.
Him,
crashed
Wade
and
Davis.
burned.
Who else was it?
Jake
Him and
McGee, Wade Davis, Mike Dunn, Brian Shaw.
Oof.
There's a lot of money for a lot of not great pitching. And for Dunn, I give him a little bit of slack because his body just kind of gave out on him. He dealt with injuries a lot by the time he was pitching in Colorado, and then he just retired.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we can bring in Isaac from Lone Depot Park for our press box report.
How you doing, guys? Can you
Fabulous.
hear
Are
me
you
okay?
lonely there?
No, I'm not lonely at all. I feel great. It's nice to be here. A lot of good stuff here today. A lot of former fish here. I spoke with Jacob Stallings earlier. That interview will be out on X, Twitter soon. To see Mike Redmond was really cool. I hadn't seen him in a very, very long time. Obviously, he'd been here in previous years, but I don't think I've been here for Colorado Rockies games. So it was nice to see him as well.
Yeah. Isaac, anything going on where you could tell us maybe injury-wise for the Marlins? Any news? No, since you've been there at the ballpark?
No, well, Tim Anderson is obviously still day-to-day. He's out of the lineup with a mild left thumb sprain. So Skip did say he's available off the bench, but I would be very surprised if we see him today. Sandy, as mentioned in the tweet, will be throwing in back-to-back days for the first time since undergoing Tommy John surgery. Jake Berger and Braxton Garrett are each scheduled to play for AAA Jacksonville tomorrow. Braxton will go 5 innings or 75 pitches. So Berger's on his way now. And then AJ Puck will throw a bullpen today. So I think those are the main storylines. Jesus Sanchez is back in the lineup after being removed for a lack of effort in yesterday's ball game. He's here hitting 5th behind Josh Bell. I heard you guys talking about him earlier. And other than that, you got Bethencourt catching today. And that's about it. Xavier Edwards finally cleared to go to begin increased baseball activities. So that's important.
All right.
I fixed the Brad. It's Braxton Garrett schedule, not Brad.
Well, I unfixed it just to feature it on here.
Can't hear anything but hi.
Weak.
Hola,
But
los
yes.
quiero. I might be back for Jeopardy.
Alex Trebase is here, and he wants to be back for Jeopardy. We'll see if we allow him out of retirement again.
Yeah, we got to schedule a Jeopardy pretty soon. We actually didn't talk about the Jesus Sanchez incident on here, so I guess we could go into it a little briefly. As you said, he's back in the lineup. This was from yesterday. I don't know if Evan saw this, but he loses for everybody that missed it. He loses the ball in the lights and can't catch it. It was a very catchable ball if he could see it, but that could be forgiven. But then, his body language, where it was just totally oblivious to the possibility that the runner might try to get a double out of this, and he ends up backing up. It gets in there safely. That's where Tim Anderson hurts his thumb, and it leads to a home run later in that inning, all things considered. But yeah, Isaac, you were there yesterday with Kevin for the explanation post game about all that. Just get us caught up on your thoughts on that situation and where they go from here after this.
Yeah, Skip said post-game he's just got one rule, and that's to give 100% effort there, and you just felt that the effort was not there with Sanchez. As you see, he's sort of smiled at Jazz. The ball dropped. He backpedaled 5 times, and then obviously Alex called. This is a fast baseball team, the Washington Nationals, and they take advantage of things like that. You saw C.J. Abrams scoring a wild pitch that did not go more than 4 feet away from Nick Cortez. So you give the Nationals a little bit of space, they're going to take advantage. And Alex Call obviously went to second base on the play, and yeah, he was taken out of the game. A very, humiliating moment for Sanchi, but he's back in the lineup today. So that's good to see that he didn't. Obviously, if it was a lefty, you probably don't see Sanchi. But it is good to see Skip holding these guys accountable here.
Yeah, and then obviously he handled the post game stuff very well. He understood that he messed up. We aren't going to act like this is a school and we're sitting down with the principal, but he did understand what he did, and he understands that this can't happen again. And it definitely ended up costing the team the shortstop first of all, and then the a 2-run homer, which ended up not very good. So yeah.
Oy, Mike. Oh, sorry, I just got an alert that Mike Trout is going to need surgery now. Oh, that stinks.
Yeah,
but yeah,
knee surgery for Mike Trout.
Yeah, but that's about it from.
That's.
Yeah, and that's about it from Lone Depot Park here. Nothing else too riveting, unfortunately. The ball club is 6-24. I did ask Skip, like as a former player, what you or maybe your teammates would do at times when things were going really, really rough like they are right now. And he said you try anything. He just really emphasized you try anything you can. And it's funny because Mike Redmond's here. We all know what he did. He took batting practice naked in 2003. And so another reporter mentioned the Twins are doing something with sausages or something. So maybe the Marlins do something out of the ordinary here to try and get themselves back on track here, because they're not this bad of a team. They're bad, but they're not this bad.
Yeah. Well, you told us earlier privately that the attendance could be even lower today than it was yesterday. Yesterday, for anybody that was unaware, they had an overlap with both the Panthers playoff game and the Heat playoff game. Not the case tonight, but it is against a team that maybe doesn't travel. The fan base for the Rockies, I don't know if they're going to travel particularly well to Miami for this series. And it is in the middle of a week, and it is still during the school year for most people. So what is your expectation? 6,376 last night. You think it's going to be even lower than that for these games?
I think it'll be slightly closer to 6,000 tonight. Right now, there's maybe 400 or 500 people there. I'll show you guys before I hop off. But a couple of guys that work for Valley told me that they're expecting it to be worse today, maybe even in the 5,000s. So, like you said, Eli, the Rockies fan base doesn't travel particularly well. There is a good amount of purple jerseys out there for sure. The Rockies are going to be wearing their bright, beautiful purple alternates, and I'm very excited to see that here at Lone Depot Park. But really not a ton of fans behind the visiting dugout like there usually is for example, the Mets and the Phillies and the Angels and stuff like that.
So I think it needs to be noted that the number we get as media is the paid attendance. If you look at the picture, there is not
the paid attendance.
370 whatever people there. There is, I want to say about 2,000 people, maybe less, and that's being a little bit generous. And I put up a picture at first pitch, and there may have been about 1,000 people there, maybe even less. So obviously you can make the case there was Heat and Panthers, but again, it's by far the two worst teams in the National League. I'm not sure if the White Sox have already kind of dug themselves out of a hole, but yeah, this is not good. But hey, at least traffic won't be as bad, so that's a plus.
Yeah. If you're in Miami, go get a ticket. You can get one for $1 right now. It's pretty sad seeing how little
you can choose your spot too. You can sit wherever you want.
You can sit
Get
wherever
ready for
you
the
want.
series after when they play the A's. Then you'll see 3-4 consistently on that.
We have Josh Appel behind me saying
I thought that
hello.
was your Dono.
Does he have a series prediction while he's here?
Yeah,
Save
series
everybody.
prediction.
Do you have a series prediction, Josh?
And MVP.
3-game sweep.
MVP? Of the series. Let's go, man.
Nick Gordon.
All right, we have a 3-game sweep from Josh Appel, and Nick Gordon is the MVP.
Rockies take 2 out of 3, and Elias Diaz is the MVP.
A Venezuelan player.
What a
Shocking.
shocker!
Whoa.
I like that guy. Can we get him? Can we get him on the show?
Danny.
All right.
All right. Appreciate it, Isaac.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm a big fan of the show, and I'll see you guys soon.
Mm-hmm.
Bye-bye. I did want to talk to Evan, touch on it at the end about attendance.
Yeah,
and I
I was
dug
about
it
to
up. And for a team that Rockies, they're in a very similar situation in terms of the product that they're putting out there. They do not have nearly the same issues when it comes to actually drawing people to show out. Let me see if I can actually find the numbers on this, because they are still like relatively close to the middle of the league in that department. I know historically they've been like pretty consistent in terms of actually still engendering enthusiasm from people to show out. Why do you think, what is it that still makes them like such an appealing entertainment option for people, even if they're not contending?
So I can tell you it's not the team.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. The Rockies have been bad enough for long enough that unfortunately the true Rockies faithful aren't showing out as much. And it is also true that there has been a small decrease in attendance so far this season. But I always judge attendance based on when we hit the actual summer, school year's over, weather is nice, and people can actually come out to these weekday games versus, at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday, not as many people are going to be there was 1 o'clock Wednesday games that are always so weird. The big thing is that Coors Field's in a fantastic walkable location in downtown Denver. It's one of the most beautiful ballparks in the league. It's affectionately and negatively referred to as the best open air bar in the entire state, because it's a beautiful location, and for a lot of people who go, it's the backdrop for them to hang out with their friends and drink beer and all that other stuff. And the baseball is just kind of a perk because nobody's going there with the expectation that the Rockies are going to win. What also helps attendance figures here in Denver is where we are a large city of transplants. Opposing fan bases show out, for better or for worse. It can really stink when you're playing the Dodgers and you are just outnumbered completely in your own ballpark.
Marlins felt that one last year on opening day with the Mets, so we feel you.
I think with that, Eli, let's get those lineups out and let's talk some ball. Let's see what we have so far for this first game between the Rockies and the Marlins. Evan, talk to us about Ryan Feltner, because we can go on and on about Sixto Sanchez and what's going to happen there with him. But talk to us a little bit about Ryan Feltner. What can we expect? What does he bring to the table? And how do you think he fares off against this Marlins lineup?
I think it's going to be tricky because this is a Marlins lineup that strikes out a moderate amount, but not as much as some of the other teams the Rockies have faced. And the Rockies are already struggling to strike guys out, giving up a lot of contact. But Ryan Feltner of the entire Rockies rotation right now is probably the best in terms of potential and pure stuff. After his injury last year, if there was anyone who wasn't aware, he took a line drive comebacker to the head, fractured his skull, ruptured his eardrum, missed a lot of that season, came back and pitched pretty well for 1.5 games or so, and then ended the season again on the IL with some arm issues. But over the offseason, really worked on profiling more as a power pitcher. He's got a great fastball that he thinks he can get it up to triple digits at some point, but right now it's 95, 96 on average. He's also got a high 80s slider that is a really excellent pitch. He'll get guys to strike out. He had one of his best games of the season this year where he struck out 10 guys in super high, cold, windy Coors Field. It was not a fun game for the fans who were there. It was very windy. It was very cold, and he just got it done. He's overall a very good pitcher. I really do think he's overall got the best stuff outright of anybody on this team.
For whatever reason, I feel like I've seen the majority of the games that he has started the last 2 seasons, including the one that you referenced. And even though his overall career numbers don't leap out, I agree that on his best days, he is extremely dangerous. He is certainly in this game. For anybody curious, the Marlins are significant betting favorites to win tonight with Sixto on the mound. Sixto Sanchez making his first start in Miami with fans in attendance ever. But there's really no contest in terms of who the better more at this stage. If you just take out their reputations and their prospect pedigree, in my opinion, the Rockies have an advantage tonight. Maybe that's not saying much, but for whatever reason, there is still an irrational confidence in Sixto. Yeah, on that other side, we should touch on Sixto because he is continuing to stretch out a little more. Last start, he went like 59-ish pitches, almost made it through 3 innings against the Braves. Now Skip said pregame that he could go about 65, 70, and then they might even push it a little farther if things are going well with him. So this is going to be the most we've seen Sixto pitch in a single outing since 3.5 years ago. But when he was last himself, when he was actually the exciting version of himself, I'll be curious to see that, because in his last start, it didn't go particularly well. He had that balk that brought in that first Braves run. He was like clearly uncomfortable. He was a little intimidated, I think, facing the Braves. But maybe this time around against the Rockies, not quite the same intimidation factor going on. So, but he at least had a little bit more swing and miss and slightly better commands at times than we'd seen earlier on. So I'm actually intrigued by Sixto. This spot that he has in the rotation is only a very temporary one. But if he pitches well, then all of a sudden it can change a lot that's going on right here. But other than that, the one guy that's not in the lineup for the Rockies is Jacob Stallings. And we're going to see him in this series in small doses. Seems to be performing a whole lot better than he did his last couple of years with the Marlins. What is your overall impression of Stallings to this point as a pretty conventional veteran backup to Elias Diaz?
Hitting way better than expected. When he's been in the lineup, which is not that often, he's the backup catcher, a lot of getaway days or swing days for him, but he's been productive. I'm legitimately surprised, because I know one of the big criticisms for him when he was leaving the Marlins organization was his bat's not that good. But so far this year, he's got an OPS of 819, 2 ribbies, which is not a ton, but he's drawn walks. He's 8 for 25 overall on the season. With 2 doubles, I think, and he almost had it looked like he could have potentially gone for 3, but y'all know Stallings is not a quick man. It's been great to see. When the Rockies signed Jacob Stallings, I said that the Rockies were getting essentially their ideal backup catcher, like the perfect guy for that role, the kind of guy that the Rockies as an organization have really liked, a defense first pitcher who's really great at building relationships and coaching with his pitching staff. We've seen that before with guys like Tony Walters and Drew Butera, and now we've got Jacob Stallings. And if he can continue to produce at least kind of on this level with his bat, fantastic signing. Plus, really nice guy. Chatted with him very, very briefly, pardon me, at Rockies Fest this year.
No, there's no doubt about the niceness quality of him in there. Anything stand out to you, Kevin, about what the Marlins are putting out for this series opener?
Yeah, Vidal Brujan again. He's in there, obviously, for Mr. Tim Anderson, who's out. Aside from that, it's kind of your same old lineup. Christian Betancourt catching Sixto this time around. I'm pretty sure he caught Sixto last time, I want to say, or it was Nick Fortes, because Betancourt was still out. But either way, Emmanuel Rivera has really kind of gotten a little bit unlucky this year. Had a lot of, long hit balls, especially to the warning track, and they just don't fall, don't go the other way for a home run. So unfortunate there for him. Isaac kind of touched on it. Jesus Sanchez is down in the lineup. He was hitting second yesterday in that one at bat. He had the base hit, and then he was obviously, taken out. And Jazz is hitting third. He's looked really good. So, good opportunity there with Arise and De La Cruz at the top there of the order to get something going. Hopefully Jazz can drive you in, and then we'll see with Josh Bell. It's definitely been tough, but with Stallings really quickly. I mean, I've noticed the low strikeout percentage, the lowest of his career at a 12 point now given less playing time, less at bats, smaller sample size, but he's walking a lot more. He's striking out a lot less, and it's really, I don't know how much the Coors Field effect is helping him out here, but definitely good to see him get it going. I think the Marlins would kind of kill to have that type of production from a Christian Betancourt right now, or even half of that from Nick Fortes.
Yeah, it's not so much that like Stallings is all of a sudden a superhero now. It's just that the Marlins somehow got worse at that position with his departure. Like there was a consensus, Evan, among people watching him regularly, that it was an addition by subtraction to non-tender him and let him go. And it somehow their catcher production is even worse without him. Betancourt, 1 hit this entire season entering tonight. And in that last series, we touched on it before you came on, Like when they have Nick Fortes in the lineup, everybody runs on this team. I just noticed that the Marlins have allowed twice as many stolen bases as they've stolen themselves. So I think that is yet again going to be another big factor here. If the Rockies get on base pretty frequently, they should have the green light, especially when Fortes is starting.
We'll see, because the Rockies have not stolen a lot of bases this year, second least in the league with 10 total. Despite that, during spring training, especially, they were preaching being very aggressive on the base paths, trying to steal a lot of bases, and they just haven't really done that. There's a lot of speed in this lineup. Jordan Beck is going to be a stolen base threat. Charlie Blackmon, despite being almost 38 years old, has stolen a base or two already this season. Ryan McMahon, deceptively quick. He can steal a base. He stole one just the other day. And then Doyle and Tovar are both, they're going to steal on you. But it's been very surprising how little they've attempted to steal. And I wonder if it's just because they've been so behind pretty much every game so far this season that it's not worth it. I will also say really quick on the subject of Jacob Stallings, I wouldn't call it Coors Field or anything like that, because he's doing his best hitting away from Coors Field. Gotcha. Small sample size to start the season, but in about an even split for plate appearances, he's hitting much better on the road than he is at home.
Good for him.
Sorry, before we get into prediction time, I wanted to ask you, Evan, about one of the players in that lineup that just seemingly has been a Marlins killer for a reasonable good amount of time, and someone that maybe the Marlins were interested in not too long ago, and Ryan McMahon has just been crushing the baseball so far to start the season. What has he brought to this team as really the leader and a consistent point for the Rockies, it seems like, just for years on now?
It's tough because it feels like every year so far in his career, we've been waiting for his offensive breakout season. And, he's never been a high average hitter, but waiting for him to maybe hit 30 home runs or do something like that. This is honestly the best out of the gate offensively he's looked in his entire career. And, it'd be funny, you call him a Marlins killer. He actually made his major league debut against the Marlins back in 2017. But a big deal for McMahon this year. The power is coming. He's got 4 home runs, which is excellent because we need guys that are going to hit home runs. But it's his approach and his swing have made tremendous improvements. He worked very hard over the offseason. Last year when he was struggling, he was striking out a ton. We very much felt like it looked like there was just a big hole in his swing. And he was struggling. And this year so far, he's been off to honestly a really great start. I mean, he's got an OPS plus of 133. He's getting on base. He's drawn some walks. He's hitting home runs. He's doing everything that he's supposed to. And I think as a leader on this team, even though that maybe wasn't what he originally intended to be, it's him at least able to lead by example with the bat. As you can see with the StatCast info that you got pulled up right here, he's essentially the Rockies leader in basically every offensive category right now. And then, his glove at third base is always one of the most important things we've got on the field.
Yeah. So, Eli, any last things you want to point out or ask Evan before we get into prediction time?
I think that about covers it. What we have here, he already touched on the fact that, as we'll get into shortly, neither team has won a series so far this season, and that has to change. There is no choice but one of them by default.
The battle for Ethan Holiday.
Yeah, we'll win this one.
We deserve Ethan Holiday. We didn't get Jackson. It's only fair that we get Ethan.
It'll be a good one, especially it seems like it will actually be between the Rockies and the Marlins to see who'll get the first pick. But Eli, without further ado, let's start with prediction time.
This is prediction time.
Y'all ready?
Let's see, Eli, our super subscribers, who they have for the series.
The first few that sent it in, they've finally been broken by that Nats series. This is one of the rare times where the vast majority of them, have the Rockies winning the series, even though all things considered, because of they've been broken. Once you lose the way that they lost, this past weekend, especially that Sunday game, like it's hard to I can understand where they're coming from. Although I've seen this in the past, they get emotional, overreacting maybe, but a lot of enthusiasm for the Rockies, and at least they two Jacob Stallings MVP predictions. Just a little bit
I don't
silly.
blame him.
Because at most he's going to start one game.
Yeah, he's going to have a really good game on Thursday.
Right. Let's start the getaway day. But otherwise, yeah, Brian Dela Cruz, we didn't touch on him very much, but DLC, he has his stretches where he gets red hot, and even the overall, like his batted ball quality has been really encouraging. So yeah, some people riding with DLC. He's won MVP already several times this season so far. A quick look at our overall leaderboard. Daniel is on top by just a single point.
I still think that needs to be changed. Jazz getting MVP.
Over and Michael Cronin, who's on your heels, you sent me a message explaining his pick, and that the reason why him and you are near the top is because you were early on board this idea that the Marlins are awful, and he, in this case, he actually is picking them to win the series. He's one of the few that thinks the tide is going to turn. So I imagine he's going to go head to head with you on that particular one.
All right, so let's start with prediction time. As always, leading off, Mr. Kevin Buffett.
I'm feeling good. I will go with a Marlins sweep, and my MVP will be. I'm gonna go with Mr. Luis Ariz. If you guys remember last year, he walked it off against the Rockies to snap the streak. So let's see if he can snap this huge losing streak the Marlins have going on right here.
All right, I'll go next. I have the Rockies taking 2 out of 3. I'm going to continue on this negative trend until the Marlins prove me wrong, and they have yet to prove me wrong. So they're going to lose another series. Colorado Rockies take 2 out of 3. MVP is going to be Ryan McMahon. Ryan McMahon, 905 OPS against the Marlins in his career. Brad McMahon, 2 out of 3 Rockies. Eli.
It's a Marlins series win this time. They're going to finally get it done. I've seen this pattern before, as I said, with the fans totally losing confidence in the team. And when they reach that breaking point, that's when it usually flips. This is one of the few matchups where I feel they have somewhat of a talent advantage, all things considered. And I think it's going to show out, winning 2 out of 3 of this series, their first series win of the season. I'll go with Edward Cabrera as my series MVP. He's starting the finale of this one. And I think even when the final line has been shaky for him, overall, he's really impressed me with what I've seen has been on the mound. So I think he's going to win that rubber game of the series on Thursday to push them over the top to their 7th and their 8th win of the season.
And now last, certainly not least, Evan Lawler.
The question is always if you want to be too positive or too negative. I don't think this is going to be a sweep for either team, and I'm not sure how it's going to go, honestly. So I'm going to try and be positive here. I say Rockies take 2 out of 3, and the MVP is going to be the rookie making his debut, one Mr. Jordan Beck. He will start hot.
Ooh, like that, going with the rookie. Start off hot on this series. So that's going to do it for us here on FOF. I'm Daniel for Kevin, Eli, Isaac in the press box. Evan joining us from Purple Row. Evan, we really appreciate you joining on. Really fun to talk about Rockies and taking time out of your day, celebrating the Nuggets series against the Lakers to come on and join us.
Hey, no hard feelings, right?
That wasn't the past. We could go another hour talking about the Heat and the Nuggets, but that's for another podcast. But that's going to do it for us here, presented by Burger and Hicks. As always, go Fish.